Welcome students to Lesson 2 in our unit on proportions and ratios. In this lesson we will be identifying equivalent and non-equivalent ratios. Our essential questions are what are equivalent and non-equivalent ratios, and how do I determine if a ratio is equivalent? First, let's talk about equivalent ratios and what they are. They are two ratios that have the same value when simplified. These equal ratios can also be called proportions. And I have an example of three fractions here, or ratios, that are actually the same. And why are they the same? Because when you multiply or divide both the top and bottom by the same number, the fraction keeps its value. And that's what's happened here. 1 times 2 is 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. So the word proportion says that two ratios or fractions are equal. And you can see that visually here with our pizzas. We have 3 pizzas that are cut in half. We have 3 halves, but each half is represented by a different fraction. So here we have a half, here we have a half a pizza, but it's represented by 2/4, and this half is represented by 4/8. Now, we do have some equivalent ratios here, but we're missing some information. So let's talk for a moment about how we can fill in some blanks. We're going to start with this problem right here. And we have 2/6 equals blank over 12. We notice that 6 times 2 equals 12. So we're going to multiply the top by 2 as well. So our result would then be 2. 2 times 2 equals, that's not correct. 2 times 2 would be 4. So 2/6 is an equivalent ratio to 4/12. Now let's look at this set of fractions down here. 4/12 is equivalent to blank over 3. We see that 12 divided by 4 equals 3, so we want to also divide by 4 up here. 4 divided by 4 is 1. So 4/12 is equivalent to 1/3. These ratios are equal. Now let's take a moment and look at another problem. We have a carnival game that has 3 winners for every 7 losers. And you're to find 2 ratios equal to the ratio of winners to losers. So I'll give you a moment to think about what that looks like, or what your first step is. Alright, let's look at the solution. The first step is to write the ratio of winners to losers, and it looks like this, 3 to 7. Your second step would be to multiply the first and second number. In this case we multiply by 2, and that gives us the ratio 6 to 14. The second step would be to multiply the first and second number by another common value. In this case we used 4, so that would give us the ratio 12 to 28. Therefore, the two equal ratios that solves this problem are letter B and letter D. Now, we've talked about equivalent ratios. Let's stop for a moment and just mention non-ratios. These are simply two ratios with unequal values. And moving on to the topic of how to determine if a ratio is equivalent. There are in fact 2 ways to determine if a ratio is equivalent, and we've already been working rather extensively with the first one. And that is to reduce and or expand the ratio. And you can see I have some examples here of equivalent fractions or equivalent ratios. The second step is to check for equal cross products, and that's what you see demonstrated here. What's happened is you take 3 times 15, and that's 45. Then we take 5 times 9, and that equals 45. What we have are equal cross products. Therefore, these two ratios are in fact equivalent. Now let's work with some cross products for a moment. We have the ratio 9/12, and we want to know if this ratio, if it's equal to 3/5. Are these two ratios equal? So let's begin by writing down our ratios. What we have is, as soon as my pen cooperates, we'll begin. What we have is 9/12 to 3/5. There we go. 9/12 equal to 3/5. And we want to look at 9 times 5. And that equals 45. Now we want to look at 12 times 3. 12 times 3 equals 36. Are these products equal? No, they are not. So therefore, these two ratios are not equivalent ratios because they do not have equal cross products. Now let's look at a second problem. Here's another practice problem. 3/5 equals 6/10. We want to know if these two ratios have equal cross products. So we're going to look at 3 times 10. 3 times 10 is 30. And then we're going to look at 5 times 60. 3 times 10 equals 30. And 5 times 6 equals 30. Do we have equal cross products? Yes, we do. So these ratios are equal. Now let's look at a real-world situation dealing with ratios. And this time, for this real-world situation, you are at Giant at the grocery store, and there's a sale on cans of pineapple. You can buy 3 cans of pineapple chunks for $2. Stock up. How many cans of pineapple can you buy for 10? So first we begin with our ratio of 3 cans of pineapple chunks for $2. And that ratio looks like 3 division bar 2. And again, we want to make sure that we label the things that we're comparing. 3 cans for $2. How many can we buy for $10? We see here that 2 times 5 equals 10. So we know that we need to multiply 3 times 5 also, which equals 15. We can purchase 15 cans of pineapple for $10. That's a pretty good deal. Now we're going to stay at the grocery store because we've also noticed that Oreos are on sale. And Oreos are on sale for 12 packages. You can purchase 12 packages for $20. And we want to know how many packages we can buy for $5. 12 packages are a lot of Oreos. So we have 12 packages of for $20. So how many can we buy for $5? We see that 20 divided by 4 equals 5. So we know that we also have to divide by 4 on the top. 12 divided by 4 is 3. We can purchase 3 packages of Oreos for $5. Alright, now let's summarize what we've talked about today. Equivalent ratios are two ratios that have the same value when simplified. Equivalent ratios are also called proportions. Non-equivalent ratios are two ratios that have unequal values. Equivalent ratios are created by multiplying or dividing both numbers in the ratio by a common value. And there are two ways of deciding if two ratios are equivalent. One is to reduce and or expand the ratio, and the second is to check for equal. So that sums up the lesson, this second lesson on equivalent and non-equivalent ratios. Now students, make sure that you take the time to complete the practice problems that are also included in your guided notes page.